to show us how to use a pegboard. Yes, a pegboard to create beautiful floral cross stitch that is really art, Ken. Is Ken Wingard?
Yes, hello.
It's art.
Well, I'm so excited about this because, you know, I did a little thing about cross stitch we found at the Pinners Conference.
So cute with your whole family.
Lizzie made the little stitch people.
Yeah.
I think we have a photo of that. And I've been sort of like obsessed now with cross stitch, with these sort of like old American classic arts that are being made more modern. That being made more modern by the subject matter, and this being made more modern by the scale. You're starting to see these everywhere. I've seen them in a couple of design magazines.
And I've seen them at fancy, like, hip stores where they'll be behind the girls at the cash register.
Oh, it's like a cash wrap display?
It's huge.
They
yes,
look impressive.
So beautiful.
The thing is, they're very, very simple to make. I would actually say it's easier to do this than it is to do small, regular cross stitch. So it's actually kind of, oddly enough, a nice, easy way to discover how it works.
Well, I know you have a cross stitch photo, but will any photo work? Could I print a photo of Alexandra, for instance, and do something like this?
Yes and no. You could, but there's a whole separate process for converting that. You've got to convert it to little squares. You've got to convert the colors. That's kind of a whole separate thing. Okay. It's best to just find a classic cross-stitch pattern. So cross-stitch online, cross-stitch books. Here's one that I found. Very classic. All you're going to need is that, and then pegboard. I got a regular pegboard. This is 48 by 48. Each of the holes is an inch apart. So it's 48. And then you're going to, as you saw here, we've got all these different colors with these diagrams. So those of you who don't know cross stitch, each color square is a different color yarn. So take the pattern that you want, go to the yarn store, and just pick a color yarn for each piece.
Could you make this any size?
Well, it's going to be, it's going to be blown up by the inch. So each one of these squares is going to be an inch.
All right, so if I wanted to make it doubly, I could. I would just have to do double.
You just have to double. So what I did here is I just measured 48 little squares across, 48 little squares up, and 48 squares this way, 48 squares that way. So that is the exact size of my pegboard.
All right, now where do you even begin?
It's very easy. And cross stitch, have you ever cross stitched before?
Never. I have never.
You'll never be able to say that again, Debbie.
Oh, I'm excited.
So what you're going to do is just count down. It's a counting name. So if we can see here, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 squares down and 2 squares over, and then my first stitch starts.
Okay.
So starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2.
Oh my, that's simple.
So it's that simple. So
you really just have to follow the grid.
Exactly. So find a nice little place to start. Then what you're going to do, I knotted my thread, as you can see here. I'm going up and down. Now for the first stitch, pass it through your knotted loop, and that's going to sort of
giving you an anchor.
Right. Make your angle, and then you're going to come up and down again. So basically, all you're doing, this is where it comes from. It's just across. That's all you have to do.
All right.
And then if you look on your next thing, the next stitch is 1 down. So all you're going to do, go down to the next hole. Now, if you are working on a piece of fabric, there's all sorts of rules because you want the back to be as flat as possible. You don't want a lot of knots. But with this, it doesn't matter. So that's why it's very easy for a starter.
It's easy. However, I know you're just using a basic cross stitch, but this is very grand in size. I can't imagine this is a one Hallmark movie project.
If Paige were making this, it would probably take about, if you're doing it alone, about 8 Hallmark movies.
16 hours.
16
so
hours.
It'll take you a couple days to make this, but it's well worth it.
And it's a great thing to do with your kids. This is a great little kid activity. Get them into counting, into colors, get them used to handling it. It's great for the pincer reflex. Have a couple of friends open, a bottle of wine, do some gossip. So as you can see, it's starting to come together, and I'm just following this pattern.
No, we have some photos of you actually working on it in
Let's show you. I'll show you the play-by-play
here. So this is what it looked like when you started.
Totally blank.
Okay.
And then after like a few hours, we've got this sort of working color by color, and then it just progressed. The next one, we have a little bit more done. And you really see it starting to color. You sort of like do a bunch of the greens, and then you switch thread, and you do a bunch of the pale pink. You switch threads, and you do a bunch of the darks, and you sort of work your way around.
Look
and
at
you see little by little, it just fills in. When you've done with so what I'll do is I'll finish this leaf here.
All right.
I'll then drop the needle, pick up
The other
red
color
needle, leave
and
that
go.
dangling, and
Why
go
are
the
you
other.
using a plastic needle versus, because I have never seen a plastic needle.
Well, a couple of reasons. Let me
All
put
right.
this down here.
This is so beautiful, Ken.
So the plastic needle is going to make it a lot easier because you are sort of reaching, if you see here, when you come up with the plastic needle, you don't have to worry about poking yourself.
All right.
It's very, and then it'll also start to like turn. So see, as you can see, this actually bending there,
okay.
which makes it just easier because you are, by the time you're here, you know,
right.
you're doing long things.
You have some suggestions about color, which I thought was really great.
So, like, especially if you want to do something classic like the rose. Some of the rose, the actual color specifications you'll find might be a little too sweet. So keep in mind that you're going to be hanging this in whatever room. I took the colors and I just toned them down a little bit because it's going to be blown up and
match
it's
your
going to be
house.
in your living room.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, it really is like a piece of art. And I love the fact that you're using the double thread. It makes it look so much more substantial.
Well, you have to, because when you blow up the scale, that single thread is going to disappear on the pegboard. You can get the thicker thread, but it's going to be a lot more expensive. So a little money-saving tip: get regular yarn, double it over. And I have to say, I also very much enjoyed using the brown pegboard. You can also use the white. If I were doing this for like a garden room or maybe a nursery,
Sure.
I do it in the white. But
Or
to
black pegboard.
black,
You
I
could
think,
frame
would be
it.
fabulous. The brown, I think, gives it a certain earthiness.
Sure.
And then when you're done, all you do to hang it, a couple of nails on the wall.
That's it. And because there's holes in it.
Right, exactly.
There we go. I mean, it really is like a beautiful piece of art. That's gorgeous, Ken. And it's fabulous and frugal. He's
There
done
you
it
go.
again.
Both things.
Ken, that is gorgeous.
It really, and it's interesting. It's one of these things where when you hang it, this isn't something you want to put in an entrance hall or a foyer because you need a little bit of distance,
So
which
you
is
can see
when
it.
you're up close, you can't really tell. And when you step back, it all sort of pops.